Kaya Nunakort. Hi everyone, my name is Jana and I'm the curator of Heathcote Cultural Precinct. So we're here on site today to talk about one aspect of Heathcote's history, because Heathcote has a many-layered history, but the one aspect we're going to talk about today is the built history, which began in 1929 with the opening of Heathcote Reception Home. Heathcote was a hospital for people suffering from mental health issues. There are 5 buildings on site. The building behind me is Swan House, which would have been the main entrance to the hospital. We also have Murray House, Canning House, Administration Building, which is the one over this side of the site, which would have been where the staff worked, and the nurses' quarters over the other side of the site. There's also one more building on site which was called Avon or Avon House, depending on who you talk to, and that was where the car park currently is situated today, which was demolished in the 1990s. At the time that Heathcote was built, it was considered very ahead of its time to be positioned in such a beautiful location. Here we are standing on Point Heathcote overlooking the Derbyl Yerrigan, also known as the Swan River, with views of the city of Perth, Kings Park, Nedlands, Claremont. And such a stunning site with a beautiful natural aspect was considered to be quite restorative for patients and aid in their recovery. People often ask me if I find working at Heathcote creepy, but I always reply to them that I don't find Heathcote creepy because I don't find mental health creepy. In fact, I find it really interesting. Heathcote was a short stay facility and it was a place where people could come for treatment for illnesses that were deemed recoverable. So things like depression, anxiety, schizophrenia, or some of the symptoms that were brought on by syphilis. It was also a place where people could admit themselves for treatment, which was really good. So why don't we have a look inside? So this room in the admitting ward would have been where a patient was placed for observation before being transferred to a bed on the ward. And the first thing you'll notice when you walk into any room at Heathcote is that it's flooded with natural light. And that's part of the restorative architecture of the site. So each room has got beautiful large windows and beautiful views. It's hard to know what it would have been like for patients on site during the time of the hospital because all patient experiences are individual. But the treatments on site varied from various forms of medication, occupational and behavioural therapy, as well as electroshock therapy. And although the electroshock therapy machines probably don't come in a wooden box anymore, it's still the current form of treatment for many forms of mental illness today.
So what used to happen was everybody would be got up and have their breakfast at the table, apart from the ECT patients who were being fasted, and they'd be kept somewhere, with a nurse with them all the time. And then so all the beds would be coming out like this and the pillows are up this end, and what we'd do is make up an ECT bed on top of the bed. So it was just like a post-op bed really, so that when the doctor came in we'd have the trolleys here and we'd be walking here and the patient's head would then be up this end of the bed, the treatment would be given, they'd be turned on their side and then the next person would be looked after.
When you are first admitted and possibly very ill, you may be confined to a locked ward, for example, Murray House. As you get better, you are allowed more freedom and activities, better accommodation, until finally, when about to be discharged, you may be offered a private room. In Murray House, there is nothing to do but watch TV, and you don't feel like doing much. In Canning and Swan House, there are walks, meetings, occupational therapy, and you may make an appointment to see a hairdresser, beautician, or podiatrist. Finally, when you have progressed to Avon House, the last stop before discharge, you have compulsory outings once a week, cooking sessions, etc. As you progress, you get a weekend's leave and you can go home for a weekend. If that goes well, you get a week's leave and you can go home for a week. If that goes well, you get a discharge and you can go home for good.
Nurses and staff came from a variety of backgrounds, and many, especially during the 50s and 60s, were post-war migrants. Most spent years training, working, or both at Heathcote. They talk of the significant changes in the treatment and the facilities at Heathcote, but also about the camaraderie between staff, the humour, the support, something that endures today.
I woke today thinking about life at the old nurses' quarters. Junior night staff came down from the ward and bought all the day staff a cup of tea to wake them up. Such good memories. There was a level of humanity and a care culture that provided support to staff without intrusion or real recognition. All meals were available in the staff dining room. I do describe them as halcyon days because staff stayed and friendships were forged that lasted long and well.
And we used to fight over the hats. You had to just get the right one that fitted your head.
Yeah.
And what you were supposed to do was at least recycle them at least every few days for the sake of hygiene. But if you got that precious hat with the number of stripes on that you were supposed to have, so a first year nurse had a plain hat, a second year nurse had one stripe, and the third year nurse had 2 stripes, you'd hang on to that hat for dear life. It's interesting how often the clock tower would feature in psychotic people's delusions. There were all sorts of ideas about ghosts that were up there, controlling elements that were up there. It featured a lot, even though it didn't really do terribly much. There's a big boiler room next to it.
Over the decades, the facilities would continue to grow and evolve as needs and awareness and the attitudes towards mental health and awareness into the treatment and needs of those suffering from mental illness changed. In fact, the changes in building, the names, titles and building use can almost be read as a physical timeline into the changing attitude toward the care and treatment of mental illness. In the 1960s, the group Friends of Heathcote was established. The group was made up of residents of Melville and Applecross areas affiliated with the Mental Health Association and aimed to reduce the public stigma associated with mental illness through public awareness campaigns and to provide practical assistance to patients. Fundraising activities through the group supported facilities such as the 1968 pool, buses for outings, gardens, televisions, the planting of trees. Fundraising activities included concert parties, picnics, home visiting and fun runs. This aimed to provide variety in the routine of a day and community inclusion.
I think it was a big shame that it was closed down. I think there's still a need for a place like Heathcote.
Today, Heathcote, Gulu Gatup, Place of Children, is a space of play, recreation, contemplation and interpretation.